Hello, everyone. Welcome to Ready, Set, Action. Today, you're joining myself, Kristina Witmer. We have Debra Horowitz, and today we have a special guest speaker, Stacy Oliver Knappa. Today, we will present ideas to help you unleash business magic with processes, leadership, and AI wonder. So, looking forward to this exciting show where we can sort of look at the whys and the hows and all these little tips to help our businesses grow. So, um, with that said, we have a lot of fun stuff to discuss. I'm just going to kick it off. And as you know, our structure is, 3 tips that you can make action on this week. So let's start with tip number 1. I'll turn it over to Stacy and then we'll go from there. And we'll share any links of reference in the comments afterwards and just share any questions if you have them. Thank you, Stacy. It's good to see you.
Well, thank you so much, Kristina and Deb, for having me. I hope to share some great actionable tips for your audience because I know these are challenging times for employers. There is so much going on. There's resignations, but then there's layoffs and just everybody's a hot mess right now. So hopefully all of this will help. So my first actionable tip is about documenting processes and getting an employee handbook together. I am still astounded how many organizations that I consult with that don't have this basic things to kind of guide your employees on how to do their business. And it's really, that's what can get you into a lot of litigation challenges when you don't have a handbook and you don't teach people what is in the handbook. And certainly you can't help your customers or run effectively organizationally if you don't have your processes documented. I do think there's a tendency right now to use video to do processes, and that's not really helpful in a real-time situation. In a real-time situation, I need steps 1, 2, 3, 4, and I can just reference it and help my customer or whatever I'm doing. Where a video, I have to access it, log it, look at it. So really it is back to standards, putting those 10 commandments down or you in steps 1, 2, 3, 4. And
I think
and
that
also
I think that is so spot on. I talk to a lot of entrepreneurs who are just trying to make that next level up and hire like their first employee, right? And they've been doing it all kind of on autopilot for a period of time. They know the steps that they take to, go from talking to a potential client to getting them onboarded, right? But they've never put it down on paper. And then they go to hire someone and then they're still like tethered to going through the process to teach that person how to do those parts of the job. And so I know it seems to be, I think the hesitation a lot of times is it's time consuming to actually stop and think about each of the steps that you take. So do you have any tips in that regard as to how they can kind of make it easier for them to document those things?
absolutely. One thing is, I just want to touch a little bit on something you said. What I hear from smaller businesses is that they think it's common sense. And so they don't think they need to document anything because it's common sense. And the challenge with that is common sense is different for everyone. It's your background brings your common sense to a job, and it's just the same because we all come from an infinite ways of life. The easiest way to do it is to really, we've got these beautiful phones. We're going to talk about this later, but just use the audio recording on your phone and record it. Right? Really just go into your phone, step 1, step 2. It will write it out for you and it'll give you a place to start. That's really the easiest thing to do, is to simply get it down in black and white so you can see it. And that will start opening the holes for you of, okay, this doesn't make sense. And I always say, give it to somebody who doesn't know the job at all. And if they can't do the job based on what the process you wrote, then it's not complete enough. And if they can't get their answers questions about like discipline work at our company because it's not written, then you know you need to make that more full. You need to get more information into it. So that's where I would start. If you can't type or you don't want to type, because we're all getting real lazy about that too, start with your phone to record it there and where you are.
I have a question too, two-part question. Basically, is there like question? Is it different when you have contractors and or employees? Is there any difference there? And then is there sort of a magic number of people where you get to 5 or 10 or whatever, where you have to take another level of formalized processes or whatever? Anything you've seen there?
Sure. So the difference with contractors is that you can't really tell them what to do, because once you start telling them really what their parameters of employment are, or how to do their project, then they technically start becoming employees, and it's a slippery slope. For contractors, truly, it is you're hiring them for a project that has a start to finish. You don't really tell them what to do. You just tell them these are the expectations at the end of the project. For the other part of your question is what was your other part of your question right now? I got so caught up. Oh, when's the mark? When should it came back to me? I find that if you get really over 5, people where you start getting to a point you cannot talk to every day, get their work product every day, that's when it starts. You need to start writing something down. It doesn't have to be complicated, but you need to start setting the standards, because what I've seen in my practice is that once you kind of get to about 10 and then you start doing this, it gets at the beginning and saying, okay, we're going to act like we're grown up and we are going to truly play in this different, little bit hard. It becomes your practice.
That makes total sense. Okay. Did you have anything else to add to tip number 1, or should we move on to tip number 2?
My only real add-on is do it. Just do it. I know it's a pain. If you don't want to do it, get help doing it. But it is really necessary. If you want to grow and thrive, this is where you need to start.
Excellent. Excellent. So tip number 2, I'm excited about this one.
All right. Train your people leaders. Oh my goodness. This is really, I got asked a great question by a client the other day, because I don't really specialize in an industry. I mean, hospitality is where I started working in hospitality, but I go across the board to all sorts of companies. And I got a great question, and they said, out of all the companies that I consult with, were there commonalities? And if there were, what are they? And my answer was absolutely yes. And one thing that is very common is not training that supervisor level, that people are great at their jobs. They get promoted into working with people. And then it's like, good luck. Like we just expect a miracle, that they know how to help in difficult situations, that they know how to handle. The example I give is that John's a great employee, but he's showing up 5 minutes late every day. What do I do? And that is a kind of nuanced answer. It really depends on what's happening. And if you don't teach your people leaders how to handle those situations, they can easily escalate into bigger issues, because then you can get into unfair treatment. As an HR leader, the question that I used to get a lot, which would be mitigated by training your supervisors, is, can I do this? Can I do this? And it would always get to a level of, it was to the point they wanted to fire the person. Can I fire them? That was like not the number one question, because obviously we're not firing people every day. But if you come to an HR leader and you say, can I do this? Can I fire them? We're going to ask you, what did you do to get that got you to this point? And most, if you're entry level and you're just kind of piecing things together, you don't know what to do, and you don't know if you took the proper steps. So I would not take for granted your entry level supervisors or any people leader, even if they are, experts. They're at that manager level or director level. Many of them don't need a refresher every year on how the law has changed or how your company has changed. And maybe you're handling employee situations different than you did the day before or the year before. We get really stuck in our patterns and what worked and what we saw. But that is really like, spend a lot of time, spend a lot of investment to save you a lot of heartache later on.
That's excellent. I think when I when I was looking at that tip, I was also thinking about the entrepreneur that's growing their company, but they may not have come from a background of having any managerial experience themselves, right? So how what would be your advice to that person about taking on coaching or something like that, just to help them level up as they're leveling up their organization?
Yeah, you make a great point there, Deb, because yes, most entrepreneurs, that you get into being an entrepreneur because you have passion or you have a vision about either your product or your service, and you don't always connect that it's a business that you're running. And if you want to grow, people are going to be involved at some point. And if you really want to grow, a lot of people are going to be involved at some point. Yeah. So how you can level up, there are so many classes available. Some are free, some, LinkedIn Learning. There is also, depending on if you have a group, you can hire a consultant like me. I have an entry-level supervisor or entry-level people manager course. But there are absolutely resources out there. And the challenge is, when you're an entrepreneur, you're just kind of holding it all together on a given day. You're so worried about your cash flow. You're so worried about, logistics, the things that come with running a business, that you forget about yourself, and you forget about that people are maybe not motivated the same way you are. So you need to learn how to coach people and find out what makes them tick, how to get the most out of them, and how to discipline is kind of the formal part of it. But I just say, like, correct them. Nobody is, I always kind of go into this stuff with positive intent. People are working on positive intent. I'm Stacy. I'm just trying to do the best that I can, because you haven't told me I'm doing it wrong. But as a strong leader, and if you want to grow your business, you're going to have to learn how to tell people you're doing it wrong, or you could be doing it better in a way that continues to build them up. And that is a skill. That is not something most of us learn. Even sports, about the Olympics a lot because it happened. All of those amazing athletes were getting coached. And each kind of person responds to a different kind of coaching. You got to learn how to do that. So that's where I would make it a part of your discipline as a business owner to learn how to do these great skills that are going to last you for a lifetime as well.
Yeah, I would double that. I would double the suggestion that you do that as soon as possible, because I started early in advertising and would sort of get promoted into these sort of small supervisor, manager, junior manager roles with zero training. Like, I never had any training about leadership. I mean, I was a good reader of people, and I was compassionate, and I was good at my job, but it is a whole other skill. And in order to really jump to the next level, you do need some structure, and you need to understand, I don't know, where to draw the line, and what's a battle and what's not. It's interesting to me. And then even with my agency now, I was sorely lacking in those skills because I didn't ever really formalize them. So I totally appreciate that. I would definitely recommend those things as you go, because as an entrepreneur, it is hard. You see the gaps, right? Like, I'm not a bookkeeper or tax preparer, so I have that. But you start, some of those things, they slip through the cracks if you don't really say, you know what, a checklist of, I need to make sure I have rounded skills, or at least, I can grow these skills. So I like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was thinking, like, the more the how to, the action, like, so where I would start is that if you are new to people leadership, find an all-day course, and there are plenty of them available, where you are away from your business. You can talk to other people who are going through the same challenges for a whole day.
Mm-hmm.
I would advise anybody who gets into leadership, because Kristina, just imagine how that would have changed your journey if, like,
Yep.
they promote you and then you spent one day with people who are starting the same journey and sharing, like, this is what I'm scared about. One thing, I'm scared about getting sued. That's a big thing. Can I tell somebody
Mm-hmm.
they're not behaving correctly? And then
Mm-hmm.
after that, I would, depending on your size, is after you give everybody the chance to go through an 8-hour course, or just an 8-hour day of learning, every month meet as a people team. We love to get in meetings and talk about tactics, right? I did this. I've been in most of my leader team meetings where everybody's showing off about how amazing everything was going. And then really behind the scenes, it was a train wreck, but that's another thing. That's another podcast for another day. But
Yes.
actually get everybody in the room with your HR partners and talk about the people side of it. And you don't have to put their names to it. Just say, I have this issue. So you're kind of protecting the confidentiality and the anonymity. But, like, I'm having this, let's talk it out. That can truly change an organization. It is just really getting on top of all of that, getting a people meeting going. So it's a standard in your company, and you face these things with the right intention. Maybe it's not a punitive intention. It's truly, sometimes you are dealing with an employee issue and it is time for them to break up with you. That's what I say. Either you're going to break up with them or they're going to break up with you. It's going to happen one way or the other. There are some situations like that, but wouldn't it be a gift to talk to your peers and the HR person first to figure out if you're seeing narrowly because you're dealing with it day to day, but to get that outside point of view? That would just be so helpful. And it would change your culture too, or certainly as an entrepreneur, help build it if you were approaching training in that way, those people issues.
Yeah, I was thinking also that it would really impact that confidence level of those people leaders too, right? To really feel like, okay, I'm in the lane. I know that this is the direction that I can go in, and I can't go off on this side or that side with, with the way that I'm dealing with the employees, right? And so that would, have you seen that bolster confidence among the leadership team, or what would be some of those other benefits?
Well, I think, we forget about the people side of it because not many people are taught how to take someone through the employment cycle, like how to hire somebody. I don't think much of us have very confidence in that, like what kind of questions we might go through a behavioral training. That's kind of the way we're traditionally taught, that behavioral interviewing is it. I like to do a combination of a bunch of things, but it ends up, if you don't teach somebody how to confidently interview, they're going to just hire somebody they like, somebody, because it's the human thing to do. But so there's the hiring, there's the confidence of just day-to-day leadership, and then there's the confidence of when you need to fire someone. I mean, I remember the first time I fired someone and it was awful. It was, and truly, I believe it should always be hard on you to fire somebody, regardless of the circumstances. But there is a way to be more confident about what you're doing and making sure you're doing the right thing. So yes, I think the confidence would go up. I honestly, Deb, I haven't seen many companies that do this because they're so in the wheel of getting business done. But yes, I believe, because we all know over time your confidence builds, but wouldn't it be great if your confidence was building intentionally instead of just, oh, Christina's good today, but that's because Christina happens to have 10 years of experience behind her, where the first year was awful. But we could do this a much better way.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Kristina, did you have anything to add before we move to?
No, the only thing I'll say is the first time I had to let somebody go, it was horrible. Of course, of course it was, but I also realized that I had an obligation to tell that person more directly why it was happening. And I really did not want to deal with that. I didn't want to tell them the flaws that sort of brought that moment on. And I've always regretted not being more constructive. Not, cruel by any means, just a little more constructive, because you're not doing anybody favors if you kind of just gloss over the reasons. So I have regrets over some of the first time, and I wish I had, been just more constructive, because that's somebody's career they need to learn. But yeah, that's good. This is good.
Excellent. So bring us home
And I
with
could
tip
tell them
number
about
3,
that.
Stacy.
Tip number 3, AI is popping up everywhere. It is really something that I am surprised how much it's popping up in my circles in HR and the organizational development world. And I just went to a convention about speakers at the National Speakers Association. We had 4 sessions on AI. It really was something. I mean, why do speakers need AI? My tip here is to figure out, as a company, where do you land on it? We can be some kind of weird about this. First of all, I don't think our AI policies are really ever going to catch up to what's going on. Like, AI is just changing too fast. Like our social media policy, they're not going to catch up fast enough either. So your AI policy, and I don't know too. The policies are always there to guide us, but they're not going to be something that are reviewed every day. And if you send it out, once a week, like, we have a new AI policy, no one's going to read it. No one's. Let's be honest. I'm a very practical person. No one's going to read it, going to understand it. I think there's AI to do a lot of that basic research that could take, weeks before. Now I can, with a quick couple of prompts, be really good at asking a question that gets me closer to my answer. And there's nothing really wrong with that, as long as that you are sure your answer you're getting from AI is correct. So I really think there is a training, a communication opportunity to help your employees understand where your line is with AI, what needs to be original to them, what is okay to research, making sure they're not putting confidential information out. That's what I don't think people realize about social media in general, or anything on the internet, besides if it's on your firewall or you have a private AI. I didn't know that existed till about a month ago, that you could actually buy a company AI, and that kept things. Exactly, Debra, like, what? But yeah, you can keep it so it's internal. So if you share an internal document, it's not becoming a part of the overall AI where it's pulling from other information. Another tip with AI is make sure people are not being very specific. No names are mentioned, no companies are mentioned if you're on the public version. But embrace it for what it is. So I gave a little experiment yesterday thinking about this. So I put in AI, and this was an open AI, that said, I have an employee situation. I'm an HR generalist. This is what's going on. They're fighting. They're disruptive. I know I need to address this, but what should I do? Can you give me talking points and the steps I need to go through to make sure that I do the right thing? Within seconds, it gave me, think about this, put them in a private room, talk to them separately, make sure you're holding them accountable. And it was so much easier than what I would have done before, besides the experience that's behind me. So I to do. But imagine like you're coming up with a really unique situation. You have no idea where to start. Before you had to go to your SHRM books, that's the Society of HR Management, or really ask about 1,000 people who are all going to tell you something different because nobody knows what to do with that stuff. Everybody wants to ignore it. But with AI, it gave me a plan. And I think that is where a real benefit is it can give you a plan. You look at the information, and then with your expertise, knowing the people involved and the other extraneous factors that only a human can know time to the best human solution. And that's on my mind lately about how I've been using it just for an editor, like really just to put my content in it. And because I love a run on sentence, I love just like I talk and run on sentences. And that's really what I was using. It's so much more capable to helping us. And that's where I think like figure it out, try it for yourself, be curious, be safe, but use it to bolster your business instead of being scared of it and putting up a bunch of walls, because it's coming. It's coming. It could be, it's not Skynet today, could be in a little bit, who knows? But for what it is now, it can be a great tool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. I'd see, I've had conversations with business owners who have said, stop talking to me about AI. It's like, I don't even want to go there yet, right? I think that there's a lot of fear and hesitancy to embrace this and to really understand, how is this going to impact business overall, right? There was an article yesterday on LinkedIn from a gentleman that I follow, and he was saying that he asked AI to actually determine like the life cycle of the AI products that are coming to market right now. And like what percentage would still be around in a year? What percentage would still be around in 2 years? What about 5 years? And the cycle was moving so fast, right? That like 70% of what's on the market right now won't be here next year. It'll be something different.
Wow.
Right? Because we're all just kind of learning what the capabilities are and where this is going to go. And it's, to your point, it's only going to improve. And really, experimenting with it now, even if it's just for like text editing to kind of, shore up those run-on sentences, or if it's for social media posts, or, if it's for research, right? Like you were doing it to, how do I deal with this, employee situation, right? I think just giving it a try, as you talk to, the different companies out there, what do you think? Are more ready to embrace it, or is there still a lot of fear and hesitancy?
I think there's still a lot of fear and not understanding. And I think there's an interesting thing about what we expect of employees, that we expect, like if they use tools like AI, they're somehow cheating. But I see if you are using AI in a smart way, you're actually able to get more done because you're not wasting time on things that are so easily done in AI. Here's another example. So training's my world as well. So I wanted to teach a course, and I said, what should be included in this course? And it gave me the outline. I can tell you before AI, I could spend days on something like that, really like, and is it going to tell me exactly what's going to work in a classroom? No, I know that because of my experience and, doing other research. I'm not going to just take what it tells me, but was a tremendous time saver. And where do I start? And if you're not a creative type who just likes to sit at your desk all day, thinking about objectives and other things, or whatever your field is, that if it's not, you have to have some ideation, then AI is a great place to start. But I do think people are scared. They're worried about their proprietary information getting out there, and they should be concerned about that. But that's where you need to kind of give the guidelines to your team and say, this is what's acceptable. This is what we're concerned about. This is why you don't want to do it. And go from there. Try, because it's coming. Because even if you don't have an official policy, someone on your team is using it.
Yeah.
And they either sound like a robot or a rock star. It could be one way or the other, but someone's using it. And it could be just the generational mistrust. It could be also just not knowing, and but I say, like, you gotta embrace it, try it, and set your team up for success and your business up for success with it.
That's great. I love that. And I think, maybe Stacy will join us again, because this is a topic, especially as it deals with team members, employees, and how, policies. That might be something we dive into a little deeper, because there's a lot to talk about there. I would really like that. So I don't know if you know this, Stacy, but Deb and I always are coming away with like a couple to-dos for ourselves as well. So I really appreciate it. I have a couple of thoughts that I'm like, I need to knock that out. So yeah. So I'm going to wrap us up. Yeah. And I really appreciate you being here for that. So always, of course. So thanks everybody who's joined us on various platforms. We're on YouTube and LinkedIn. We also push this out to a podcast on Spotify and other platforms. So Ready, Set, Action, Tips for Business and Growth, Debra Horowitz and Kristina Witmer, and our special guest today, Stacy Oliver Canepa. Did I say that right? I'm going to fix that anyway. So thank you guys.
Perfect. Thank you for having me. It's been great. Have a great day, everybody.